You guys have made the playoffs the last two. What's been the big turnaround? How have you viewed the way the team has grown organically?
Oh, man, I think a big shout out to the organization taking time to rebuild. I think our draft picks ended up coming big. Lexi Hall was a big draft pick, and then you get Kaylin, and then you get AB. And so you culminate that together with, my experience and having to, go through a couple things before they got there. I think it was just like a match made in heaven, really, because I was, still at a young age to really, vibe and get to know these players for who they were. And then you bring in Kaylin, who changed the world, changed the dynamic of basketball. And as a friend and as a player, you better appreciate her because, certain doors have opened because she's come to the Fever, and you have to respect that.
Has Caitlin Clark completely redefined women's basketball? It's a question that has ignited debates on TV panels, Twitter threads, and even in locker rooms. But the moment that really shook fans wasn't just Clark's dazzling stepbacks or record-breaking stats, it was what her teammate, Kelsey Mitchell, finally admitted. For years, Mitchell stayed professional, avoided controversy, and quietly carried a struggling Indiana Fever team. But recently, she broke character, delivering a candid statement that fans are still dissecting. Her words weren't just praise. They felt like a confession, a shift, and maybe even a warning. So let's dive into what Mitchell said.
Speaking of moments, you've been, as you mentioned, your career with the Fever. First six, though, were tough, obviously. They weren't as easy. You guys have made the playoffs the last two. What's been the big turnaround? How have you viewed the way the team has grown organically?
The WNBA has been buzzing ever since Mitchell finally addressed the Clark question. Reporters had tried for months to bait her into saying something headline-worthy, but Mitchell always kept things vague. Then, out of nowhere, she spoke. And this time, it wasn't PR polish, it was raw. She said Clark didn't just bring talent, she changed the world, changed the dynamic of basketball. That single sentence turned into the headline of the week. Fans asked, was it admiration? A subtle dig at veterans who've downplayed Clark's impact? Or was Mitchell signaling the start of a new era? To understand why her words carried so much weight, you have to look back at what Mitchell endured before Clark even arrived. For nearly a decade, Mitchell was the face of Indiana basketball, but not in the way most stars dream of. The Fever were a disaster. 5-win seasons, constant blowouts, 5 different coaches in 8 years. Every night was a grind, and yet, Mitchell stayed. She became the franchise's Iron Woman, refusing to give up on a team that the league had practically forgotten. Rumors even surfaced that other teams tried to trade for her, but she remained loyal. This is why her words today hit harder. She isn't just another teammate hyping up the rookie. She's someone who carried the burden of irrelevance for years, and now sees a light at the end of the tunnel. And that light started flickering before Clark even entered the league. But it exploded the moment she joined. Lexi Hall added grit. Aliyah Boston brought inside dominance. Slowly, the Fever stopped being a laughingstock. But Caitlin Clark? She was the earthquake that shook the league. From day one, the Fever went from empty arenas to sold-out crowds. National broadcasts, highlight reels, global attention, things Indiana hadn't seen in years. And Mitchell? Instead of resentment, she leaned in. She admitted Clark wasn't just a rookie, she was a phenomenon. Sports blogs speculated whether Mitchell was handing over the keys to Clark, but insiders insist it's not that simple. Instead, Mitchell seems to be saying, I've held this franchise together, and now with Clark, we can finally win. And her most famous words, she changed the world, only cemented that belief. That quote went viral instantly. It wasn't a throwaway compliment. It was a declaration. Mitchell was essentially saying, Caitlin Clark didn't just improve Indiana, she changed basketball itself. Think about the weight of that. Mitchell lived through the league's darkest days for Indiana, and now she was acknowledging that Clark had altered the entire equation. What stood out wasn't just the praise, it was the tone. No bitterness, no jealousy, just respect. Fans online pointed out that Mitchell could have downplayed Clark's fame, but instead, she elevated her. And yet, this wasn't just about basketball. Mitchell wasn't only acknowledging Clark's skill. She was revealing something much deeper, a personal connection, because the next part of her statement wasn't about teammates. It was about friendship. Mitchell called Clark her friend, not just her teammate. And that single word changed the narrative. In pro sports, players don't throw around friend lightly. It signals trust, loyalty, and authenticity. Mitchell was making it clear. This wasn't a forced partnership. It was real. Take Clark's infamous "I'm fine" tweet. Outsiders twisted it into arrogance, while some media outlets claimed it showed tension. But inside the Fever locker room, Mitchell laughed it off, saying that's just Clark being Clark. Funny, real, and relatable. Reports claim some veterans in the league see Clark as a threat. Fans speculate there's quiet jealousy behind the constant criticism, but Mitchell's perspective proves the opposite. Inside Indiana, Clark isn't a threat, she's an ally. And when you look at how Mitchell's own career is flourishing alongside Clark, the picture becomes even clearer. Instead of shrinking in Clark's shadow, Mitchell is shining brighter than ever. Analysts note she's having one of her best stretches, finally getting the recognition she deserved years ago. That's what makes this duo unique. Clark doesn't hog the spotlight, she spreads it. Mitchell benefits, Boston benefits, Hull benefits. The entire Fever are feeding off Clark's presence, and Mitchell is the living example of it. Fans on forums are already saying, this feels less like a rookie-led takeover, and more like a power partnership. And they're right. Mitchell and Clark balance each other perfectly, one with years of battle scars, the other with generational hype, and the two of them aren't alone. Because with Boston and Hull in the mix, the Fever are building something even scarier, a dynasty foundation. Mitchell, Clark, Boston, and Hull, the so-called Fab Four. Together, they've become the youngest, most dangerous core in the league. Mitchell even hinted she'd take a pay cut to keep the group together. That's practically unheard of in modern sports. But it shows just how much these players believe in the vision, from being the WNBA's punching bag to suddenly being the league's future. The Fever's transformation is nothing short of shocking. Rumors suggest league executives are already strategizing how to market Indiana as the face of women's basketball. And if they keep winning, that's exactly what's going to happen. But as Indiana rises, not everyone in the league is celebrating. Mitchell's praise for Clark wasn't just about one team, it was about the WNBA's future. And that's where the tension comes in. Reports claim some veterans like Aja Wilson and Cheryl Swoops have thrown subtle shade Clark's way. Whether it's downplaying her achievements or questioning her hype, it's clear not everyone is ready to embrace the shift. But Mitchell chose a different path. Instead of resentment, she chose alliance. She essentially told the world, we're not threatened. We're stronger together. This flipped the entire narrative. While some see Clark as dividing the league, Mitchell positioned her as uniting it. That's leadership. That's vision. And it all leads to one unavoidable question. Is this the dawn of a brand new era? Kelsey Mitchell didn't just compliment Caitlin Clark. She validated her. She embraced her. She pledged loyalty not only to a teammate, but to a movement bigger than both of them. Together, they've turned the Indiana Fever from league afterthoughts into the hottest ticket in basketball. And if Mitchell, Clark, Boston, and Hull stay united, we may be watching the birth of a dynasty that defines the next decade of the WNBA. So the question now is bigger than Indiana. It's bigger than the WNBA. Has Caitlin Clark already changed women's sports forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story is far from over.